Dear students, good evening. Welcome to Law Excellence IAS. Let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 27th September 2022. The editorial analysis for today has more focused on international affairs. But remember one thing, the depth in which the articles are being given, these can be understood when you have the perspective or foundational understanding of the international affairs. But I'll try to make it simple for you. Putting power back in the hands of the people. Let us examine the world now. The democracy appears to be on decline. The major reasons for this are rising right wing in Europe. Across the world, why the right wing is rising? If you take France, Marine Le Pen, and today Italy, a rightist prime minister is coming to power. The crisis, whenever the Europe was hit with crisis across the history, right wing has dominated. When Germany lost power in World War One, Hitler has rose, Mussolini rose. So in these circumstances, what we need to understand is the ongoing crisis, especially the cost of living crisis, it is called as it is making the world to move towards right wing. And the right wing is endangering the liberal thought, liberal order of the world today. In this context, the question can come over here as the factors that are dangerous to democracy. That may be asked indirectly in essay. So, from essay perspective, we need to learn this article. The putting power back in the hands of the people, the crisis of democracy. What are the factors? One is populism. So the populistic leaders centered around freebies, these are rising. And these populistic leaders are playing to the sentiments of the people, emotional connect with the people. And inequalities, whenever capitalism is there, then inequalities are bound to arise. The democracy aligns itself with capitalism. So most of the democracies are suffering from the rise of inequalities. You need to remember Dr. B.R. Ambedkar here. The political equality and democracy becomes meaningless without the foundation of social and economic democracy. So the inequalities in social and economic front will erode the political equality. That is what the Ambedkar has clearly stated. And overpopulation. And population is expanding. The resources, the materialistic benefits available are decreasing. And then the autocracies are growing and there is centralization of power everywhere. Radical extremities they are developing, and then crisis of representation. The parliamentary form of government is coming into danger. So in this case, let us examine India. The parliamentary system, it means an MP shall have a direct connect with his people. He shall be the conscience maker of his people. But today, people what they think, an MP what he performs in Parliament is quite different. That is called crisis in representation. The representative democracies are facing this challenge, lack of rights for all. If you examine Rohingyas, we have rights issue. Many of the stateless citizens are existing today. So these are all the crises of the democracy today the author is talking about. I have given certain examples which are beyond the scope of this article to make you understand these points. How to fight this crisis? One of the answer given is civil society. The people shall examine how the state is functioning, have to take the necessary power back into their hands. They have to check the authority of the state. So, the civil society shall play the balancing act today. And second, Hannah Arendt, remember her name, she is very famous. Now, she is a Jew and she was the victim of Holocaust. This woman, she wrote something about banality of evil. So when she wanted to visit the trial of one of the notorious Hitler's man, what she understood is he is an ordinary employee, ordinary state employee. But how he made extraordinary crimes, that was the question with Ardent. What Hannah said is banality of evil. These normal people have done extra normal or extraordinary crimes. That is, they're brainwashed by ideology. So that's where understanding the source of the evil, where it is originating from, that is very much necessary. And second is direct democracy. Tools like referendum, recall, these are essential to fight the crisis of representation. And next is what we need is Parliament of Man, federation of the world. What is meant by Parliament of Man? It means that a representative democracy that can be the conscience of the people, and then a Vasudhaika Kutumbam, that is what we call federation of the world. This is what you can take into your answer writing. The second is pitching India as a signature destination. So this is more about facts. In Dharmashala, all the tourism ministers of the country have met and they have made a declaration to make India as a tourist destination. This is what we call it as Dharmashala Declaration. Now, what the aim is to make GDP of $150 billion, a forex earnings of $30 billion from tourism, and then internally we have to mobilize the tourists, and also externally we have to stake certain countries, and country specific strategy has to be made. And then the approach what they spoke about is whole of the government approach. If tourism has to be improved, local governments have to be strengthened, and then cleanliness has to be improved, and transport, ease of transport in the country has to be improved, immigration has to be improved. In this case, a close working of different departments is necessary. When all the departments they see themselves as a part of the work government and they work collaboratively, that is what we call it as whole of the government approach. And the next the credit line is being provided for the tour operators. It is very important for the reason that the COVID-19 has badly hit the tourism sector across the world. And skills, the tour operators, they need to have the soft skills to treat various tourists, especially the foreigners or Indians for that matter. And investments are a big problem. Public-private partnerships we need to develop. And finally, skill development is essential. What are the actions taken by the government? National Green Tourism Mission. We want to make the tourism inclusive and also culture specific to India. In this context, National Green Tourism Mission aims for that. And also taking the online Indian tourism and marketing it, we have National Digital Tourism Mission. To make these missions possible, National Tourism Policy is drafted, and this draft National Tourism Policy is yet to become active. So these are the articles, these are the points we need to remember. And the next, Samarkand, a miniature of emerging world. So there is no much content in this, but remember, in the Samarkand, we have seen a new axis is taking shape that is called China, Russia, Iran, Pakistan axis. So if you observe, the China was very soft on Ukraine-Russia war. The reason is China has an underbelly called Taiwan. So China is very cautious in criticizing the Russia. India is vocal saying that an era of war is over. And second part is the democracy and autocracy. There is a wall which is coming between these countries. Now, the India might be pushed to choose the side it wants to be. That is what it is clear in Samarkand. Live streaming, online RTI portal, Supreme Court takes big steps on transparency. What are the steps Supreme Court took with regard to transparency? We have to understand here. Publication of subject-wise roster online. If you remember, CJI is the master of the roster. When Deepak Mishra was the Chief Justice of India, 4 senior-most judges have complained that the roster is not been maintained properly. Now we are solving that problem. And then, to reform the collegium system, appointment of judges, after NJAC Act was declared as unconstitutional, Supreme Court called for the public opinion of the people, and this is where we are developing something called Memorandum of Procedure. The word you need to remember is Memorandum of Procedure. So taking the public opinion is it demonstrates very much openness of the Supreme Court. And then Collegium also has resolved today to publish all its decisions online. Whatever the decision made by the Collegium will be published online. Live streaming of its proceedings, RTI portal. You remember the Supreme Court has declared that CJI office do not come under RTI, and Registry of Supreme Court has fought it. And finally, later it has overridden its judgment, said the CJI office also is a public authority under Right to Information Act. Today, that also enhanced the transparency in the working of the Supreme Court. How the UPSC can ask the question in the mains. The judiciary is a closed institution, but Supreme Court is leading by an example, leading through an example. Discuss. So with regard to transparency, Supreme Court is leading from front. Then you have to write all these points in your answer. And next is turning inward. So remember, the right wing is rising in Europe. If you take Sweden, or for that matter, Brothers of Italy, where Miss Meloni has become the prime minister, and they are neo-fascist group. And then France, Marine Le Pen, she got 40% voter support. All this shows that the right wing is rising. The cost of living crisis is the major reason for it. Home and abroad. So we are saying that India is a bridge between the warring factions of the world, that is in the divided world. Russia, China on one axis, Western Europe and America on the other axis. Now India is trying to bridge between in this divided world. Now what the article says is India has to act as an anchor and then start this bridge activity from the neighborhood itself. And when you have the conflict in the neighborhood and when you want to unite the world, then there is some kind of psycho fancy in that, some kind of oxymoron in that. So in this case, India shall stop the divisive forces within the country and start uniting the world from its neighborhood. That is the take home point. So these are the articles for today. Thank you for your nice comments yesterday, and I look forward them. And if you think that these classes are useful, feel free to share it to your friends, right? Remember my number 98492 76845. If you need any help or assistance, and then you can message me on this particular number. Thank you very much.